My name is Leah Dobres, and this is my presentation, Football, Fandom, and Fashion, Group Identity and Distinction in 4 College Stadiums. On the left is a photo I took of Evergreen Cemetery at the University of Alabama, only 200 yards away from Bryant-Denny Stadium. The cemetery's plots are sold out, with steep resale prices exceeding the cost of a year's tuition at the school, showing just how much fans value an eternal resting place near their favorite college football team. While this may seem like an absurd way to spend money to some, to me it makes perfect sense. College football has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, as you can see in this photo of my dad holding me at 3 months old, both dressed in our Ohio State garb. Growing up in Middle America, I took the omnipresence of talk about our favorite amateur sports team for granted. And it wasn't until I came to college and realized how little people in the Northeast seem to care about college football that I started to consider why my hometown is so invested in the success of a team whose players spend 4 years representing our local university. Why do people in other parts of the country not feel the same way about their college teams? What makes this sport so important to people that they would spend thousands of dollars to be buried near the home stadium of their favorite team? This led me to look at college football as a sociological phenomenon. Part of my goal with this project was to put my work into conversation with scholars of sociology in order to examine how my research places the phenomenon of college football into a broader cultural narrative. For this reason, we take a brief detour from college football for a crash course in theory. The work of Pierre Bourdieu looks at everyday activity as the main unit of sociological analysis. In this spirit, my project views the ordinary, in the form of college football fan culture, as embodying larger social patterns. Bourdieu discusses taste as not innate or personal, but representing broad patterns of society which create distinction, especially along class lines, emphasizing the role of class as central to the social world and maintaining social order. Symbolic interactionism is a field of sociology examining the meanings that we assign to actions and symbols. In the context of college football, these symbols can include team logos, phrases, mascots, songs, and endless other things that, stripped of context, would be virtually meaningless. Sports teams themselves can also be symbols, representing other aspects of social or community life, with customs, traditions, and iconography strengthening group identification. In order to consider the ways that socialized tastes and symbols contribute to fan identity and relationship to teams, I attended 4 college football games, as laid out in this chart, this past fall, where I spent my time immersed in fan culture, in popular tailgating areas, taking field notes, photos, and interviews to gain insight into the fan culture at each school. At a large public tailgate in Columbus, Ohio, a DJ exclaimed, "Reach out and touch your neighbor. You might not even know each other, but now you're friends. This is Buckeye Nation." This exemplifies the fan culture at Ohio State, one of Midwest populism, where Buckeye fans of all kind don Ohio State regalia, blue jeans, and baseball caps. No one is dressing for games as a fashion show. Outfits are practical and aim to blend in with the crowd. These public tailgates themselves were unique among games I visited. Large parking lots near campus with live music and food trucks selling beer and hot dogs. Game Day in Columbus is a citywide event, with celebrations sprawling beyond campus, every restaurant streaming the game on TV, and no store free of shoppers clad in their scarlet and gray. It's impossible not to know it's game day. The team's success strengthens Ohioans' identity with the team, as even those who do not care much for the game itself identify themselves as Buckeyes, even wearing shirts as seen in this photo with a line from the team's fight song, "Our honor defend, we'll fight till the end for Ohio." The idea of a football team as defining the state's honor represents both a recent history and expectation of future victory that is also reflected in the team's popularity. While there are many ways to enhance a locale's culture or identity, what gives sports a unique position is the concept of winning and losing. A winning culture enhances a city or state's sense of pride and draws more fans in as they look to bask in the glory of victory and share it with their community. Taking the beeline to Boston College feels like entering a different world. It was not until I was behind the walls of campus that I saw any indication it was game day, leading one to feel that they are part of an exclusive group when on campus that is separate from the larger Boston area, part of something secret and tucked away. Fashion at Boston College games consists of khaki pants, collared shirts that may feature a BC logo on the chest, vests, and bright white sneakers. Apart from some logos and a general motif of the school's colors, there's not much indication that this crowd is here to watch football. They would look right at home at any farmer's market, PTA meeting, or strolling through suburbia. Interestingly, I also noted lobster rolls for sale inside the stadium, another representation of high social class. I had little luck interviewing Boston College fans, but in responses I did get, one name came up multiple times, Doug Flutie, a legendary football player at BC in the 1980s. I also noticed a large bronze statue of Flutie's famed Hail Mary pass while walking into the stadium, as seen here. Boston College is not a football program with much historical success, but Flutie's performance marked a moment of pride that cemented him as a legend. BC fans look back on Flutie's years in the 1980s fondly. While Massachusetts is left-leaning politically, the glorification of Flutie represents a socially conservative outlook among BC fans as they reminisce on the good old times. The containment of celebrations on game day, too, shows a conservative sense of exclusivity represented in the country club-like crowd of BC fans. Alabama and college football are virtually synonymous. An older white man I met in Tuscaloosa told me, college football was one of the things we could hang our hat on and not be ashamed of, late 60s, early 70s when I was growing up. In the initial rise of Alabama football, the Crimson Tide's newfound status as a football powerhouse was seen as both a symbolic victory over Northerners after years of humiliation and as a means to be viewed with respect by the rest of the country. As atrocities in Alabama consistently made front-page news throughout the nation, the Crimson Tide rolled over every opposing team, and Alabamans could feel proud of their home state as something seen as unrelated to the usual narratives of racism and cruelty as the South asserted its dominance. This winning legacy continues. Most every fan I interview told me their favorite part of games is winning, unlike other schools where I got responses like the band or tailgate. Like in Columbus, the team's success encourages further fandom and pride in the team, state, and even region. Something unique about Alabama is the game day fashion, with platform boots, tiered metallic skirts, houndstooth suits, trendy flared jeans, leather pants, hoop earrings, and much, much more. The fashion choices of Alabama fans are a way to perform fandom and femininity, as well as southernness, by looking to appear as Southern belles. Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, is known among college football fans as a punching bag of other schools in the South. The lack of success is reflected in poor attendance at the game and a general lack of fanfare. Fans seem to perform high social class, like those at Boston College. Starting the Keystone process, I was a bit embarrassed to tell people about my project, thinking it sounded trivial compared to the amazing work I knew my peers were doing. However, this project has not only helped me to understand something that is so important to myself, my hometown, and my family, but has also helped me recognize, as I hope I've conveyed today, how seemingly trivial things like fashion, food and drink, and winning football games can reflect and reinforce larger social patterns. Thank you.
Great presentation, Leah.
Thank you.
I was wondering, out of all the schools you visited, what was your favorite and least favorite culture and why?
Of course, I felt a really strong affinity to Ohio State fans just because I am one of them. That's what I grew up around. But I also had a really great time in Alabama and would love to go back and enjoy that as a fan rather than as a researcher. In terms of least favorite, people were not kind to me at Boston College. I don't know if they could sense that I was a BU fan, a rival in hockey, but I just got a lot of hostility when I tried to talk to people, and it was probably my least favorite of the experiences I had.
Speaking of rivalries, I feel like Michigan and Ohio State is the biggest rivalry in the country. How do you think this sort of culture of having rivals plays into the experience of specifically those games, which have way higher attendance?
Yeah, definitely. I of course had a limited budget and time schedule, so I was not able to attend any big rivalry games. But yeah, growing up around it, I can say that is a huge event. If you are familiar at all with Ohio culture, you might know that it's a big tradition to cover up all the M's on street signs and everything with red X's during Michigan Hate Week is what they call it. And so I think that definitely is a time for the community to come together, and a way that sports really comes to represent the culture not only of the school but of the city and the state.
Thanks for this presentation. I am from Iowa, so I'm familiar with the power of college football. I was curious, I think there's a lot of stereotypes about football fans, maybe especially Middle American football fans. And so I was curious in your research, or like as you were researching, how you sort of distinguished between these strong external narratives versus what you were actually like noticing in your interactions with people.
Yeah, definitely. I think kind of one of the catalysts really for me doing this project was actually thinking about who college football fans are and how that demographic compares to like the players and everything. And so I definitely did spend a lot of time thinking about like what is a football fan and like who we see in these spaces. And I definitely tried to make an effort during my trips to like talk to people from different backgrounds, to try not to just go for the people who we see as like stereotypical football fans, which are often like older white men, and include a lot of like women and people of color as I saw them. Of course, I would say that most of the crowds, really everywhere I went, were majority white. It's actually something I write about in the larger paper that this project is attached to, is the general racial homogeny of the crowds. But yeah, there definitely are just a very wide array of fans at all the schools.
Hi, this was great. I grew up in Texas, so I have many feelings about this. And I'm curious about how you select who you're going to try to talk to, right? Like, things may look different if you're in the boxes, or if you're on the 50-yard line at a certain height, or if you're in the end zone, or if you're in the student section, right? Those things look different. And also, just to add on something, if you wanted to continue this further, it'd be interesting to see what happens with HBCU schools.
Yes, that was definitely a part of my consideration, HBCUs. I really did, that was something I definitely considered as including as one of my games, but I ended up deciding to limit my project scope to NCAA, like Division I, like the highest tier of football schools, and those HBCU teams don't tend to fall into that category, but I would definitely really love in the future to look more into that, or to see somebody else do a project like this that looks more into football fan culture at HBCUs, because I think it's like a very unique environment that adds a lot to the field. In terms of how I selected people to talk to, most of my conversations were done outside of the stadium. I spent between 5 and 10 hours at each of these game days talking to different people and really just like trying to get a sense of the whole environment. I was walking around a ton every day that I went to one of these games. I got like 6 to 7 miles of steps calculated on my phone. I talked to a lot of different people and tried to find like a wide variety.